A deadly start to 2017 as terror attacks claimed dozens of lives in Europe, Africa and the Middle East. Contradictions between US President Barack Obama and the president-elect as Donald Trump hints at new information over Russian hacking allegations. And how a famous East African rice dish is inspiring political satire in Tanzania. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. We begin with Turkey, the scene of a deadly New Year's Day attack. The Islamic State group claimed responsibility Monday for the shooting at a nightclub in Istanbul that left 39 people dead. The group said in a statement a soldier of the caliphate carried out the assault. Turkish media reported Monday that 8 people have been detained, but the gunman is still at large. The United States and the UN Security Council have both condemned the attack. VOA's Laditsa Hoke has our report.
Mourners gathered Sunday at the funeral of a Turkish travel agency driver who was killed in the early hours Sunday in front of Istanbul's exclusive Reina club. The bodies of many others were taken to the Istanbul Forensic Science Institute. The assailant shot dead a policeman and a civilian before entering the waterside club and went on a shooting spree inside, where hundreds of people were celebrating the New Year. Many revelers jumped into the water to escape. Turkish Prime Minister Binali Yildirim visited some of those wounded in the attack at a hospital. He said police and intelligence officers are investigating the tragedy and that some details about the shooter are emerging.
He left his gun at the crime scene and fled, taking advantage of the chaos. Police forces are working on the case. All options are considered. They are working meticulously.
Jordanians, Saudis, Iraqis and Lebanese nationals are among those killed in Sunday's attack. Turkey has seen an unprecedented number of attacks in the past year, including those blamed on Kurdish militants and jihadists, as well as a bloody failed coup. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said the terror groups are trying to destabilize Turkey. In a written statement, he vowed to fight to the end, not only against the armed attacks, but also the forces behind them. But the president is at least partly responsible for the rise of violence in his country. Michael O'Hanlon, director of research at the Brookings Institution in Washington, told Al Hura television.
I'm not blaming the whole problem on Erdogan himself, but he chose to escalate and to make a more sort of military-style confrontation out of what perhaps could have been handled partly in political ways. And also his squashing of internal dissent has been extreme and extraordinarily regrettable for a country like Turkey, which is so sophisticated and so advanced.
O'Hanlon said Turkish people have reacted to the turmoil more maturely than their leader. Zlatica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
Well, in the Middle East, Iraqi police and hospital officials say a suicide bombing attack on Monday has killed at least 30 people and wounded 25 others. Authorities say the attacker detonated an explosives-laden pickup truck in a busy market area in Baghdad. The Islamic State terrorist group has claimed responsibility for the carnage. Many of the dead were day laborers waiting for jobs. The bomber triggered the explosives at a fruit and vegetable market in Baghdad's eastern Sadr Cities district, a mostly Shia neighborhood that has been the target of repeated attacks. The attack occurred as French President François Hollande visited Iraq to meet state officials and French troops based there. Now to East Africa, where residents in Somalia were shaken Monday after a suicide bombing attack in Mogadishu killed at least 5 people. Officials say the bomber detonated 2 vehicles packed with explosives near the city's international airport. The militant group Al-Shabaab claimed responsibility for the blasts outside the main base of the African Union peacekeeping mission in Somalia. A security source told VOA 2 civilians and 1 soldier were killed by the bombers. The checkpoint is near United Nations offices and the Peace Hotel Mogadishu, where officials and foreigners often stay in Somalia's capital. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, political parties reached an agreement over the weekend that mandates President Joseph Kabila step down after an election that must be held by the end of 2017. The deal, negotiated by a group of Roman Catholic bishops, ends months of unrest with dozens killed and hundreds arrested over how and when Kabila would leave power after 15 years as president. Mr. Kabila was due to leave office on December 19th. but the November presidential election had been delayed indefinitely. Critics have accused him of delaying the vote to extend his rule. The ruling party had originally proposed that Kabila leave office after elections in mid-2018, but that idea was rejected by the opposition.
Our people need elections. Our people need a change. Now we have this accord that will enable us to get there to achieve that. So today we did what we did, but our biggest part of it remains to be done. The most crucial and most important stage to give our people an election and an alternative before 2018.
Kabila has been president of the DRC since his father was assassinated in 2001. He won elections in 2006 and 2011. In polls, the opposition claims were rigged. He is barred by the constitution from seeking a third term. Congo has never had a peaceful transfer of power since its independence from Belgium in 1960. Well, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump is casting new doubt on the U.S. intelligence conclusion that Russia meddled in the presidential election through computer hacking. He wants U.S. intelligence sources to be certain, citing the faulty information that was used to justify the U.S.-led war against Iraq in 2003. VOA's Michael Bowman has more on the sanctions against Russia over its computer hacking and alleged election interference.
As Russian diplomats left their compounds and departed the United States, President Barack Obama's rationale for ordering the expulsions was questioned once again by the man who will succeed him.
And I know a lot about hacking, and hacking is a very hard thing to prove, so it could be somebody else. And I also know things that other people don't know, and so they cannot be sure of the situation.
If he's going to have any credibility as president, he needs to stop talking this way.
In recent days, prominent lawmakers of both parties have condemned Russia's cyber activities and said even stiffer penalties against Moscow are warranted.
This is the overwhelming judgment of the intelligence community. And frankly, all of the members of the intelligence committees in Congress, Democrats and Republicans, none of us have any question about this. The only one who does, apparently, is Donald Trump.
But those close to the president-elect say Trump is merely reserving judgment until he is fully briefed on the evidence assembled by the Obama administration. And they note that Russia is not the only country mounting cyber attacks.
In 2015, China took over 1 million records, sensitive data, people like me who had worked in the government at any time, classified our personal information, where we live, things that we had written down on our applications or on our security clearances, and not a White House statement wasn't even issued. No action publicly was taken. Nothing.
Scooping up U.S. government employment data is different than making public sensitive communications during an election season, according to lawmakers.
Here's what's different about what Russia did. They didn't just steal data. They weaponized it. They dumped it during an election with the specific intent of influencing the outcomes of that election and sowing discord in the United States. That is not something China has ever done.
Russian President Vladimir Putin did not announce any immediate retaliatory measures against the United States, earning praise from Trump.
And hopefully we're going to have great relationships with many countries, and that includes Russia, and it includes China.
As matters now stand, when sworn in as president, Donald Trump could see more eye to eye with a foreign head of government than he does with the man he replaces in the Oval Office. Michael Bowman, VOA News, Washington.
Well, for more on the ongoing hacking charges against Russia, I'm joined in studio by Catherine Gibson, one of VOA's political reporters. Welcome to Africa 54.
Thanks so much.
Now, this debate has gone on now, getting closer to Inauguration Day. What can we expect in the coming weeks?
Well, one of the things that we can look at is this fascinating discussion that happened partly on Twitter over the holidays with Donald Trump going so far as to call out the current sitting president, Barack Obama, on the sanctions that he instituted against the Russian President Vladimir Putin. We, of course, know that President Obama banned some Russian diplomats, sent them out of the country within a 72-hour time period, closed down some Russian houses in the United States that, as we all know, were most likely sources of Russian intelligence here in the U.S. And Donald Trump was not happy about that. He took to his favorite mode of communication, Twitter and said that he didn't like what President Obama had done and that Russian President Vladimir Putin was very smart not to retaliate. So that's an extraordinary move by a president-elect during a time of transition.
Yeah,
so it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out.
Sure. Talking about how that plays out, we know that Donald Trump goes into office with the advantage of having the House, the Senate, and the White House. But at the same time, there are those in the Republican Party who are very passionate about Russia being guilty of these charges. Yet the president-elect disagrees with them. How is that going to be?
Right. So as you mentioned, this is something of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to have one political party in the White House and controlling all of Congress. But there are cracks. There are divisions. Republican members of the House Intelligence Committee and leading Republicans like John McCain are very upset about Donald Trump's closening relationship with Russia. And they're going to be keeping a close eye on him to make sure that there's some balance there in that relationship.
Yeah. From what you hear, maybe you have heard, are there people concerned about a president-elect publicly casting doubt about the intelligence agencies, the ability to produce accurate information?
Absolutely, because once again, we find ourselves in an extraordinary situation as we have over this past year, this past presidential election, of situations that we haven't had in U.S. politics before. A president-elect casting doubt on his own intelligence agencies. So the question is, what happens when President Trump gets a briefing in the Oval Office from those intelligence agencies? Does he believe what they say? How do they feel about him? How do they have a working relationship moving forward? Those are all questions we'll have to wait and see when President Trump comes into office.
And talking about briefing, President-elect has said he has some information that he might release sometime this week. Where would that information be coming from?
Well, that's a very good question. I think that's something that we're all asking ourselves right now. Is he getting it from U.S. intelligence agencies? Is this something his own interpretation or perception of those briefings? We'll have to wait and see. He's said that he'll be telling us on Tuesday or Wednesday, so that'll certainly be a big news day no matter what happens.
We'll be waiting to hear that. But
absolutely.
Again, is President-elect changing perception among Americans about Russia, or President Putin at least?
He certainly is. One of the most fascinating things to see develop since the U.S. election is the public opinion polls in the United States. If you look at the numbers at the beginning of this year, American perceptions of Vladimir Putin, they were not good. Yeah. Now, with the election of Donald Trump, who has been very close and tweeted all of these statements of support of Vladimir Putin, it's completely flipped. And now Americans are in support of Vladimir Putin. So that will also affect U.S. policy moving forward.
Mm-hmm. And where does that leave the Democratic Party?
Well, the Democratic Party has a number of questions to ask themselves, mainly how they're going to get back into power in the midterm elections in 2018, how they can make their message more attractive. But the immediate question is just how to battle this repeal of Obamacare, which is the president's signature policy achievement. Well, a lot of battles ahead.
Catherine, thank you very much.
You're so welcome.
We have very, very sharp analysis. Well, that's Catherine Gibson of The Voice of America. And remember to join us again for all the inauguration news and for live coverage of the ceremony on January the 20th. We want to know now what you think about Africa 54, the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Coming up, the Inside Scoop, how a popular TV show is getting young people to talk politics in Tanzania. We'll be right back.
Workers at a recycling plant in Kenya dismantle computers, phones, and other electronic equipment, saving the valuable bits like copper, silver, and gold, and safely discarding more dangerous chemicals like mercury.
We'll spend money to treat this mercury because it has negative values. That's why the regulation comes in.
Vicky Andera is with East African Compliant Recycling in Nairobi. The company collects about 59,000 kilograms of e-waste every month for safe disposal. But much of the world's used electronics actually end up in dumps in the developing world, where they are often burned or taken apart unsafely. So Kenya is the first African country to draft legislation requiring e-waste to be handled at government-licensed facilities.
I'm glad to say that Kenya is the only country with the e-waste regulation which has been passed, which is in Parliament.
Across the globe, consumers threw away as much as 50 million metric tons of e-waste last year. I'm Rebecca Ward for VOA's Green Beat.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Moroccan and Spanish officials say at least 800 sub-Saharan African migrants stormed a border fence Sunday between Morocco and Ceuta, an autonomous Spanish city on the northern coast of Africa. 5 Spanish and 50 Moroccan police were injured, 10 seriously, as they clashed with migrants who tried to break through the fence using rocks and metal bars. Spanish authorities say 2 of the migrants were allowed to enter Ceuta for treatment at local hospitals. The rest were returned to Morocco. Ceuta and Melilla, another Spanish city in northern Africa, are frequently used as entry points into Europe for African migrants who are in search of a better life. Most who try to cross the border are apprehended and returned to Morocco. Those who succeed in making it over the fences are repatriated or let go. Wildlife Conservationists ended 2016 on a cheerful note with the news that China will slap a total ban on the domestic ivory trade within a year. Now, the move will shut the door to the world's biggest end market for poached ivory. The State Council says a complete ban will be enforced by December 31st, 2017. However, the first batch of factories and shops will close and hand in their licenses by March 31st, 2017. Conservation groups applauded the ban, some calling it the biggest and best conservation news of 2016. Poaching is a major actor contributing to the rapid decline in the numbers of African elephants, with about 20,000 slaughtered every year. That's according to the World Wildlife Fund. Well, Tanzania has a vibrant film and entertainment industry. With so many diversions, it can be difficult to get young people to focus on politics as well. But one television show has found a way to bridge the divide. Africa 54's Haiti Adams Fitzpatrick is here to tell us more. Haiti.
Vincent, it's called Pilau TV, named after that famous East African rice dish, which is often used to draw crowds to parties and political rallies. The show's producers say they have their own special recipe. Just mix together satire and social media, and you'll have young people talking politics in no time. This house in Dar es Salaam is at the center of a media innovation.
So, morning, guys. Morning.
Inside, millennials talking about what other millennials are talking about. This is the creative team behind Pilau TV, a groundbreaking, edgy TV talk show that injects humor and 3D animation into Tanzania's most sensitive political topics. Justice Rutenge is the show's creator. He says Pilau TV is right at the intersection of news and entertainment.
We use comedy, we use music, we use pop culture in the program, but at the core of it, Pilau TV is about hard news. It's about serious political issues.
What's unique about the show is not what happens on this screen, but what happens on this one. The idea is to create a 15-minute TV show that sparks a conversation on social media. The team of writers and illustrators takes the debate on social media and puts it back into the storyline on television. The show is built around 3 segments and 6 recurring characters.
There's a host who presents an issue, and then there's a field reporter who goes out there to see if this is a real issue out there in the streets. There's a young man who represents the young men out there in the streets, an old man who's also the political analyst, and a very progressive young lady. Mapochopocho is a segment where we have an undercover journalist. We're talking about health. He will go and call the health minister. We're talking about the elections. They'll call the chairman of the Electoral Commission and ask them, I hear they're fake ballots. What is happening with this?
Rutenge says the extent to which the show's caricatures seem to imitate real-life politicians has some in government and the media nervous.
Sometimes they'll call it defamation, but I think we are protected by the fact that it's, at the end of the day, it's a cartoon. I mean, it's not a real person. It makes us bold enough to ask the hard questions, and this is what we're hoping that our audience will be able to learn from the show. The young people are laughing, and the media house is scared. The government isn't laughing, exactly.
And pushing the envelope is how Pilau TV gets its TV audience to not just react to the characters, but interact with them on social media.
We said, let's create a page for every character so that they can go there and speak to characters as if they're real-life characters. Our first season of Pilau TV, we aired 39 episodes. We hit 15 million impressions on social media. We reached 2 million people, and we were able to get about 200,000 followers.
Funded now by foundation grants, Rutenge hopes they can turn Pilau TV into a commercial success. Tanzania does not have a TV rating system. Rutenge says Pilau TV offers advertisers something unique. Because it's on social media, their show has the analytics to actually prove how many people are watching and what their demographic traits are, which is difficult for other TV programs.
We guarantee you numbers. If we can't reach those numbers, then we'll pay back your money. It's about changing the culture in the industry from putting an ad out there and not investing in smart mechanisms to know if it works or it doesn't. That eventually will be our biggest contribution to the industry.
Rutenge and his team hope to go as far as technology, their ambitions and sense of humor can take them.
How about taking the brand Pilau TV and doing a West Africa version, a Southern Africa version of the same, because African politics is African politics.
And Vincent Rutenge tells me Pilau TV draws inspiration from American satire, especially shows like The Daily Show with South Africa's Trevor Noah. He's quick to say, though, they don't push the envelope that far yet, but they're getting there.
It does show they're getting there. Thank you very much, Haiti. It's time now for a short break. Still to come on right here on Africa 54, a look at 2016's technological breakthroughs and setbacks, and some tech trends to watch for in the coming year. Stay with us. Welcome back to Africa 54. It was technology that made big trends in 2016. Silicon Valley and its counterparts saw important advances and a few setbacks of the past year. Now, self-driving cars began appearing on the roads, while a couple of private space exploration films saw their rockets explode on launch pads. Still, technology keeps promising a better future. VOA's George Putic reports.
Electric cars are no longer a novelty, and manufacturers are racing them towards a future of self-driving technology. In spite of several crashes, one of them fatal, automakers and car-sharing companies are strongly pushing for vehicles with different levels of autonomy, from the ones where the driver can take over at any moment to the ones that learn from experiences on the road.
When the self-driving car encounters that situation in the future, we can study what how millions of people reacted to that situation, and pick the appropriate option.
2016 also saw the proliferation of all kinds of robots, big and small, humanoid-like and strange-looking animals. Some of them are helping ordinary people.
This helps people find their departure gates faster and not be late for their planes.
But most of them are still experimental platforms, helping scientists crack the toughest hardware and software problems. Others are already working in industry and science, and even on the surface of Mars. Their next of kin, drones, are set to start delivering merchandise. Medical technology also made advances, from regrowing less complicated tissue such as cartilage to brain-controlled exoskeletons, helping handicapped people regain some mobility.
For example, if the hand is moving, although you are not intending to move your hand, then you can veto this kind of movement with your eye movements.
3D printers are now capable of manufacturing complicated machine parts.
So if we look at this, inside of here, there's a honeycomb structure. You could never take a machine tool and manufacture that the old way. You just couldn't physically do it.
One of the biggest consumer technology setbacks was the launch of Samsung's Galaxy 7 smartphone with a battery that had the tendency to self-destruct. Samsung quickly offered a replacement, which did not solve the problem, so the entire line had to be scrapped. SpaceX's unmanned rocket exploded on the launch pad, destroying a payload of commercial satellites and slowing down the private company's plans for irregular commercial trips to low orbit and the International Space Station. 2016 also saw a proliferation of the so-called home assistants, audio players that can understand voice commands and perform many tasks, from playing music on demand to searching for information through the internet. IBM's supercomputer Watson was busy helping doctors around the world in various projects. One of them is collecting and processing information about rare diseases.
The knowledge in medicine is going to double. So if we want to use this enormous improvement of medical knowledge, we need to have assistant systems and we need to have software tools to get a hand on this.
2016 also showed substantial vulnerabilities of computer networks, with several big thefts of private information. So experts say cybersecurity will be one of the most important technology trends for the coming year. George Putich, VOA News, Washington.
Well, and that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight, at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching from all of us in Washington. Have a good night.
Welcome to the Voice of America's Newswords.
Here is U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry talking about U.S. and Chinese relations.
Listen for this word.
Emergence.
We welcome the emergence of a peaceful, stable, prosperous China that contributes to the stability and the development of the region and that chooses to play a responsible role in world affairs.
Emergence means the act of something appearing. It is coming out of hiding or just beginning.
Emergence also can describe nature, like the emergence of flowers which come every spring.
Now, when you hear the word emergence, you will know what this news word means.